IVM.
RMZ Corp presents The Future of Space.
Hello and welcome to the Future of Space podcast, where we draw your attention to the matters of workspace and the Indian commercial real estate space. I am Venugopal, your host for this episode. With the introduction of the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment Report in 2006, there was a major shift in the understanding of key business principles. It is from that point onwards that the term ESG, or environmental, social governance, started to become a key business priority. It facilitated a radical change in the ways in which business ought to be conducted. It expanded the spectrum of business impact to the society, nation, and eventually the world itself. As stakeholder capitalism has become the way forward for businesses, tools like the Davos Manifesto 2020 serve as ready reckoners to the responsibilities of business towards their customers, workforce, supplies, local communities, and the environment. GRESB, a leading assessor for ESG performance in the corporate real estate space, released the findings of a 2019 report. It found 90% of the participants mentioned the presence of ESG objectives in their business, and 98% attest to the presence of sustainability task force within the organization. The sector at large looks to prioritize excellence in ESG through collaboration, innovation, and standardization. Today's ESG frameworks draw from 17 Sustainable Development Goals charted by the United Nations, including sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, and gender equality, among others. It calls for the mindful use of resources such that future generations can also have access to them. It calls for practices that promote workforce welfare and providing of equal opportunities to all. Most importantly, it creates a culture of well-integrated communication, action, and accountability at all levels of operation. A mix of sustainability values and social values selected from the Sustainable Development Goals serve as the foundation of a corporate ESG strategy. That being said, it is necessary to evaluate the workings of ESG in the commercial real estate space.
Knowledge Corner is presented by RMZ Corp.
In the 2018 edition of the Ernst & Young Climate Change and Sustainability Services Report, 96% of the respondents disclosed that ESG information has occasionally, if not frequently, played an important role in decision making. This reveals a 29% increase in positive investor sentiments towards ESG information since 2017. The report also reveals the top 3 reasons for the reviewing of non-financial information to be adjusting valuation for risk, examining industry dynamics and regulation, reviewing investment results. Let me introduce Chaitanya Kalia, an expert on ESG, is the national leader, climate change and sustainability services at E&amp, India. Welcome to the Future of Space podcast, Chaitanya. Thank you for taking time and being with us. Tell us something about yourself.
Thanks, Venu. Thank you so much for this invitation. I really enjoy to be part of any discussion related to sustainability. I'm really passionate about this topic. And whenever I get a chance to disseminate this subject, sustainability, I look forward to take it. I've been working in EY in this space last 21 years. So it's a pretty long time in one organization, but that's what I do. And as a leader of sustainability and climate change practice of EY, I have worked with most of the companies in India. I would easily say about 80% of the private sector company. I have advised them on sustainability. And so do I enjoy working with your organization as well. And I look forward to a meaningful conversation today.
Chaitanya, we have come a long way on the idea of sustainability as environmental, social governance. What do you think the priorities are on ESG in today's business?
ESG, Venu, is becoming very mainstream nowadays, as you must have seen and rather experienced. it's a lot of change in the thinking, specifically from the investor's point of view. Let me tell you a small story about it. 30 years before, when sustainability word was coined in this our common future, the Rio summit that happened, it was people, planet and profit. And that continued for a very long time. But over the years, somehow, investor had some view on the word profit, and so do other people. So they have smartly replaced the word, and now they call, instead of people, planet, profit, environment, social and governance. So that's how it is ESG. And of course, the second part of the thing is investor have very microscopic focus on this ESG area. And they want to know how companies are performing both from financial as well as non-financial perspective. And they get this non-financial view from ESG point of view.
Chaitanya, we talked about sustainable values and social values as a part of the ESG strategy. How important is sustainable development goals in an organization where sustainability is being driven?
So, Venu, the Sustainable Development Goal, or SDGs as they are called, it's a very larger than life kind of a cause. You see, the fundamental point on ESG that we need to understand is SDGs from the ESG point of view are taken by the government. And practically they need private sector or organizations help to propagate the SDG agendas. All SDGs, there are 17 of them, and they're designed by United Nations worldwide to be taken up by the government. So it fulfills government's requirement and disseminate sustainability across organization, across populace, across government sector, across the country, so to say. So one part of it, it is expected that every organization fulfills by imbibing SDG in their strategy. And that's how it is becoming very important. Another way to look at it, whatever you do in the space of ESG, SDG is going to be always there. And then you can say that we are contributing in a holistic manner towards a larger cause. So it's becoming again a mainstream activity. That's what I would say in terms of sustainable development goals.
Most organizations do compliance because that's a part of the statutory requirements. How does ESG differentiate on this?
It goes without saying that anything you do with the compliance, anything you do as a part of strategy, they are two different things. Now, I agree that mostly ESG in India has started as a compliance, more so for the listed entities. Listed entities required as a business responsibility reporting to report their ESG performance, or as I call it generally as a non-financial performance, through national voluntary guidelines. So that becomes a compliance requirement. But to really see the value coming out of it, you have to put as a part of the strategy. So compliance becomes the starting point. And we need to go beyond compliance and make it as a part of the core, as a part of the organization strategy, and they should run together. So financial, non-financial aspect should go hand in hand and together. Therefore, in my view, compliance is a starting point, but we need to do much more than just the compliance.
Most commercial real estate companies talk about sustainability. Many times they take sustainability is just green. It's like getting a LEED certification, platinum, gold. What is the difference and how does ESG help for a commercial real estate space?
I guess the commercial real estate space, they have done a good job starting with the LEED certification. And nowadays it has become almost a key differentiator, as well as for good builders, good companies, it's kind of a norm. Because people realize that real estate as a sector where people use a lot of natural resources, be it a cement or a steel or water, and during the lifetime also, such as air conditioning, which comes off the electricity. So it is a big kind of a hotspot for consumption of natural resources. So LEED is a very good starting point to take forward the sustainability agenda. Now the question is that sufficient or something more needs to be done? The fundamental thought which the commercial real estate segment they can think of is how at the time of construction and at the time when, throughout the life of my building, how the impact on the environment can be minimized. And that is something which has to come up as a forefront. And that requires thinking beyond the LEED certification. So beyond certification, as we talked earlier about beyond compliance, we need to think beyond certification. That will help a lot of innovation, that will help us to think through what is required to do. For example, should we look at water neutrality throughout the life cycle of the building? Should we look at carbon neutrality by looking at more renewable energy kind of a space and many more things? Then that really gives, all right, here is a building, LEED certified building, environment friendly building, all the occupants, the impact of their presence, their commercial activity is negligible to the environment. And that is something kind of a holy grail for the commercial real estate space or the companies.
See, most of the organizations, if you look at on the commercial real estate space, are quite strong on the environmental side. As you rightly said, carbon, water, waste and all that. And also social side, we have seen foundations doing most part of it. But from governance perspective, what are your views to ensure sustainability across all parameters of ESG?
When you really touched upon a very, very important point. The governance we need to look at when we are looking at ESG is not about governance at the top, at the board level. Of course, the board is the one who sets the tone. But here the governance is required from top till the almost bottom. Almost bottom is the people who are at the field during construction and wearing, PPEs, for example. Everyone throughout the organization, every department must understand a simple question: what sustainability means for them, or what ESG means for them. And that's where the governance come in. In other words, every department, every aspect of the organization must understand what role they are going to play when it comes to sustainability. And that is in real sense governance. And really want to emphasize, because when we talk about governance for a typically listed entity, it means that the behavior at the top, behavior of the boards, behavior of the senior management, this is required. But my view is that beyond that, governance also should find its space at every level of the organization. That is something is really critical to see successful ESG implementation in an organization.
From ESG framework, one of the key things that we really see, because there's so many parameters that come in, which are important to be, data to be collected and all that. And one of the critical things is the disclosure or being transparent or being able to put our data on a public platform. When this is being done, how do you think the potential stakeholders, stakeholders in our case could be banks, could be investors, could be clients, and could be our own people who really want to join the organization. How do they look at the transparency and disclosure part of ESG?
Right. So it's something I call it as a strengthening your core. I think there are so many disclosures now. There are 2-3 types, if you want to put it as a bucket. One is which is sector specific. We talked about GRESB earlier. Then there are which are coming from a survey base. So there would be, the investor-led organization. They will ask you to give response based on some questionnaire, and they will evaluate you based on what you respond. The third bucket is where they don't ask you anything depending on what you have disclosed or what is the information available in the public domain. They create some sort of a scoring, and that is then get shared with the investors, which is again mostly investor driven. So under 3 bucket, the expectations are different, the evaluation process are different. In my experience, it's very difficult to meet one requirement and then again go and meet another requirement. It becomes little kind of a problematic, haphazard, or non-efficient. Therefore, my view is that let us strengthen the core. We should do the right thing. Whatever we are doing should come with the fundamental principles of protecting environment, giving social justice to the people, having a right kind of governance, and based on that, we can have our own disclosure. It can come up as a sustainability report. It can come up as a integrated report or any other form. And if that is of high quality, it doesn't matter which third party is seeking this ESG disclosure. I think we will be there at the top, and they rank it. So generally we have to achieve top 10, 20 percentile numbers. So that's what we have to aim for. So in summary, I would say rather than going for specific disclosure or specific ratings, I think we should strengthen the core and then disclose so that we meet most of the criteria easily.
See, the other point that comes up is we keep doing quite a bit of work on ESG, And then we always want the whole organization to be a part of it. And invariably, there could be communication gaps and some kind of an interest in getting the whole message of ESG through the organization. What, according to you, are the few steps to avoid this kind of gaps in the communication?
So I will draw, answer to this question from what I earlier said as a part of governance. If you want to put element of governance, let me put it across the organization, people should know what is required to be done. And therefore, this communication strategy become a very important component. It can be achieved in various ways. And thanks to the digital age that we are now, it is becoming much easier these days. Earlier, whenever we want to do, the only way was probably internal newsletter. But now that has changed. There are various ways, like we are doing a podcast or, any other fireside chat or many other ways of communication. But the core principle again stays same, that we need to communicate. We need to communicate what is the thought process at the top, what is our strategy, what we are going to do, and it should be done periodic basis in a continuous manner. So that once people know, they really then start responding to that. And then we need to celebrate. As and when we do anything nice, I know you guys do wonderful work in terms of your CSR activities and you get so many LEED certification, GRESB and all of that. We need to celebrate. There is a lot of feel-good factor and it is, as you know, contagious. So we need to work on that and work on the communication strategy as a part of overall ESG principles.
Nice. We talked about ESG. We talked about elements and parameters that make it and disclosures that we need to do, how it's being communicated and all that. On the implementation side, because when you have to get all functions together as an organization as a whole, what do you think some of the challenges which an organization could face and how do we overcome them and then give a comfort, yes, as an organization, we are able to do and reap the benefit of being more a kind of, a resistant organization against the complete sustainability program.
When I would like to draw analogy from a, bodybuilder's physique. What bodybuilders they do, if they need to get a six-pack, they don't get overnight. They have to work on it. They have to work on it for maybe months or years together. And once they get that, they have to maintain it through a continuous exercise regime. Sustainability performance is also something like that. It's not that you do it just once and you're done with it. No, you need to do it for a long time. You have to have patience to establish the fundamentals of sustainability across organization, get a high quality performance on ESG parameter, SDG parameter, and all those KPIs. It takes time. So we have to have some patience. That is part one. And once we achieve that, then we have to maintain it. That is also not easy, which means we have to do it all the time and set the bar higher and higher. And that's how what we look at when we are doing an implementation. So it's a journey. We have to take along everyone. It should be part of the induction process to begin with, where anyone new joins, they are aware what organization mean by sustainability, what it means for them. So start from there and then periodic communication, etc. that we talk about creates a culture of sustainability and then it can be survived and the performance can be really good.
Quite good. So sustainability should be completely in the DNA of the organization and organizations need to completely follow this so that, it becomes, as you rightly said, it's a culture and we go through the whole process. But, finally, one factor always comes in is, yes, we have a sustainable organization. There are certain advantages for it. But there is also, as we always say, there is a revenue budget. There needs to be a non-revenue budget, which we keep talking many times. From that perspective or from the dollar perspective, what are the green bonds? Or from the financial side, what is it corporate real estate organization could benefit, which could also motivate them to get into this space, which today we are seeing that very few of them are into the ESG space?
Very interesting question, Venu. But you have asked that question in continuation of another something which was important. One is that when we are looking at sustainability, it is costly or is it a drain on the resources? So we need to look at from that aspect as well. So first of all, it is not, because in most cases, we are talking about safeguarding natural resources and any resources would have some cost. typically nowadays there is a lot of emphasis on the long-term value of your organization. And when you want to value your organization, it cannot be captured on the book value, which is available for everyone to look at the balance sheet. But many of the company would like to invest based on the non-financial performance at a much, much higher level than the book value, at a multiple of it. So question is from where it comes. And that's where the ESG plays a significantly important role. Now, what is happening from the investor perspective? They are trying to capture some of those companies where this, let me call it as a green quotient or ESG quotient is very high. So it gives a lot of advantage. It tells that the company's core is very strong. They are going to be here in the long term. So the long-term value for those companies are very high. And then the set of investor who started typically pension fund, who doesn't want to take a very high risk, they are happy to rather look at a lower return per year, but not a very high level of risk. So it started from there. And now there is a set of investment vehicle which is available now. And they would like to invest in a company which is environment friendly, following ESG principle. And that in nutshell is called as a green bond. And to put in a simplistic manner, today such investment vehicles are available where we can, or an organization can reach out to them, get the funding with a promise that this money will be spent in an environment friendly manner. That is the precondition. And that's where they are in loose terms called as a green bond. So once a company is following very robust ESG criteria, meeting all those requirements which we talked about, probably they will attract this green bond much easier manner.
I think we had a great conversation on ESG. I'm sure many organizations will come onto this bandwagon and reap the ESG benefits. Thank you, Chaitanya, for being with us today, taking time and giving us the insights and critical details of ESG.
It was pleasure, Venu. Thank you so much for inviting me. Nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
The extensive focus of areas of a multi-layered ESG framework requires concrete back-end infrastructure in place. This implies that teams working on day-to-day aspects of ESG implementation ought to be trained or continuously upskilled in several areas of operation. At a basic level, it's important that every member has a sound understanding of the elements of ESG policy. This will gradually empower teams to evaluate the efficiency levels of potential policies and identify global measurement indexes to participate in. The role of data is central to the evaluation of ESG priorities. Therefore, competencies in data collection, processing, and insight gathering should be strengthened. As autonomous buildings lead us towards the future of Indian commercial real estate space, there is a potential for greater precision in data collection and increased scope for the gathering of real-time insights on different ESG priority areas. Thank you for tuning in to the Future of Space podcast. Please join us for the next episode.